Hey horror fans, welcome back to Room 237, coming at you with another review of a 1920s silent horror film. This time I'm going back all the way to 1920 with The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which I'm holding this up because I don't own it. Like many films back then, it's part of the public domain, so you can find it on YouTube, which is how I watched it. But I would love... holding it like an idiot. But I would love to own this because I really enjoyed this movie. As far as silent films go, I will put it up there with Nosferatu. It might actually be tied with it. Very different film. It's very easy to see the influence in it. Especially with people like Tim Burton or any sort of visual filmmaker. And the thing about Dr. Caligari is it is widely considered to be the first true horror film, way back in 1920. Of course, it's debatable. There's been horror films before then, mostly short films or trick films. This was the first one that I think was full length and not a trick film, I guess. But yeah. So widely considered to be the first ever horror film. So this is a movie I've been wanting to see for a long time. I've heard it mentioned. I've seen it referenced a bunch of times in movies. For the longest time, I thought it was part of that 50 movie collection that I have. I don't, and it's been kind of hard for me to find except for online. But what can be said about it that hasn't already been said? It is saying it's original would be kind of crazy because of how old it is. Of course it's fucking original. I will say that this movie is a bigger, more prime example of the German Expressionist movement than, say, Nosferatu, just because the visual style. And Nosferatu feels, even though it is German Expressionist, it feels more straightforward than this does. This is like witnessing someone's dream. That's how crazy and trippy this movie is. The whole movie literally looks like this. It looks like it is done on a stage. Like, weird angles, like the way streets are depicted, jagged lines, windows are like triangles, shadows from like lampposts or furniture or trees is actually painted onto the set. So you get this very artistic look to the film, which I find very fascinating and very... In other senses, you could say it's cheesy and cheap, but with this, it really feels more artistic and more intriguing to look at. See if I can just pull something up. 1920. I should have done this before, but I didn't. Anyway, the story is rather simple. It opens up with this young man named Francis, played by, because I'm only familiar with one actor in this movie, so I don't know anyone else. Friedrich Fehér, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He plays this guy named Francis. He's sitting on a bench with this older man, and this woman, played by Lil Dagover, that's right, plays Jane. And he says, "Oh, that's my fiance. We've seen some crazy shit." And he tells him the story. So he's probably the earliest unreliable narrator in horror. And he tells a story about how, at some point in his past, the carnival came to town. And this strange man came in and he had like an act with this somnabulist, I believe is how you pronounce it, which is a sleepwalker. played by Conrad Veidt, also from The Man Who Laughs, plays the sleepwalker named Caesar. And Dr. Caligari is played by Werner Krauss, excuse me. And basically the story is anyone that sort of gives this doctor shit, he pretty much hypnotizes or uses Caesar to go out and kill them. And the way it's done is it's beautifully done. I would say the score to this is better than Nosferatu, where Nosferatu is more of like a gothic church organ, even though I like that. This score seemed to fit a bit more, and it had different tempos and went with the film more. And basically, one of Francis's friends named Alan is murdered by Caesar. So the more Francis looks into the murder, the more we find out about this Dr. Caligari and Caesar. Until eventually, and I mean, it is a rather short film. It's just over an hour, like an hour, maybe 10-15 minutes. The doctor sends Caesar after Jane in her sleep, which you get probably my favorite scene of the film, when she's in her bedroom and he creeps up. He wears like black leggings and like a black turtleneck, and he has this weird like black diamond eye makeup. Everyone has weird ass makeup in this movie, especially Dr. Caligari. And just the way Conrad Veidt as Caesar like approaches her as she's sleeping with the knife and doesn't work. He captures her. But yeah, I did mean to pull up just some stills of the sets just so you can. I mean, this is like a walkway as he's carrying Jane. I mean, jagged walkways and. God damn it, let me close. Or even like streets, which is clearly like a wooden or cardboard set with all these weird, strange lines. One last one. The scene of him in Jane's bedroom, possibly the best, personally my favorite scene of the film. And also on YouTube, I saw it in the original print, so you get some black and white, you get like the gold sepia tone, you get like the blue that you see a lot. But one I've never seen before, because even Nosferatu is like sepia or blue. When he's in Jane's house, other than her bedroom, it's like this weird purple. And it seems like Jane's house and even Francis's house that's like when everything looks normal. Like the furniture isn't all Tim Burton jagged looking, and that's why some film historians don't say it's a prime example of German Expressionist, because there's a little bit of scenes that aren't like that. I feel weird saying spoiler alert because this movie is 99 fucking years old. But there was a twist ending that I did not see coming, which is this Dr. Caligari he's a director of this insane asylum. And he was reading about, a couple hundred years ago, there was this Dr. Caligari that used a somnabulist to carry out acts of murder named Caesar. So he became obsessed. And eventually a patient who was a somnambulist came in, and he sort of practiced on him, named him Caesar, and sort of became the new Dr. Caligari. And so it's like it's told in flashback from Francis's point of view, but then we get the flashback to Caligari's past. And then like when the authorities capture Caligari and put him away, and we cut back to regular time, you find out the guy that Francis is talking to is another mental patient. Jane is a mental patient. Caesar's a mental patient. And Francis is a mental patient. And Caligari, who now does not have makeup, is still a director of an asylum. So it's like nothing. I'm sure there's different things you can take away from it. But, I just the depths of madness that this movie is insane. I know another form of German Expressionist, or another big aspect of it, is harsh authority. Like sort of interpreting harsh authority, like Caligari and being like a madman. Caesar sort of being the German soldier, sleepwalking. And there was this one guy who wrote a book called Caligari to Hitler, saying how this film is like a premonition of Hitler, some 13 years later at least. But I definitely look at it as, I mean, even if this is the first horror movie ever, which I consider it to be, it is still a damn fine film. Silent movies, even though I love old silent horror movies like Phantom of the Opera, which I'll review at some point, or Nosferatu, which I have reviewed, it can be harder to watch because, people are overacting, because silent films are, an art form of body language. But this movie, the visual style, the story, the music, even the title cards. I mean, the title cards aren't just, black screen with text. I mean, it's this weird font, and some of them, like when Caligari is saying, at the carnival, step right up, ask Caesar your fortune. At the bottom of the title card, there'll be like a shape, like a cane, sort of like how he's getting everyone's attention. Or later on, when talking about murder, at the bottom of the title card, there's like a drawing of like a sharp object. They really utilize the title cards, which even that I thought was very interesting. Like, perfect example. The title cards are, with weird backgrounds and shapes and font. And again, how every set there's no exterior shots. It looks like a play. Like it's all cardboard or particle board or something. The fact that they paint shadows with black paint, like, this movie really is like a nightmare or like a dream. It is the most surreal movie. Well, I mean, you could also say Eraserhead is the most surreal horror film, but two totally different fucking films. It still is very surreal and very dreamlike. And of all the older horror movies that I've been watching lately, this might be one of my favorites. And I would love to own it. I would love to, especially find an edition that has some features, because I would love to look into the making of this. It was directed by Robert Wiene, German name. But still, just a simple story about a guy telling his story about shit he's seen involving him and his fiance, about this crazy doctor with a sleepwalker that kills people under his behest, with twist after twist, and just the most surreal, again, sounds weird saying original, but original set designs and music, and just the way people wear their makeup. And that was another thing I noticed. During the main events of the film, everyone has this weird makeup. So, like when you see Caligari up close, he looks really creepy. Conrad Veidt looks really creepy. But then in present time, when we see where Francis is, everyone looks normal. But very haunting images. I love the set designs. And again, it's easy to see the influence. It's no surprise to me that next year this film is going to be 100 years old, and there's still people who are into it, amazed by it, and talk about it. I wish I found this film earlier. I loved The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. It is the prime example of horror in the 20s, and I was amazed by, the first ever horror film, and I thought it was that good. Even though I like old horror movies anyway, even that old, but I thought it was great. I highly recommend it, especially even if you're not into silent films or necessarily old horror films in general. If you are, definitely check it out. But even if you're just into visually striking films that look like nothing you've ever seen before, definitely check it out. So worth it. I loved this movie. I was blown away by it. But that is 1920s, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Thank you for watching.